We're live. Welcome. It's Fridays with Sue and Steph, and I am not Sue, but she
I
is
am Steph.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We're here to talk about the Apollo Neuro. I know you've seen it all over the interwebs, especially on our site. And we've been testing it out and using it. And we want to share with you what we've learned. But first, we have some good news. Do you want to share it, Steph?
We do. So we have our first raffle winner, and her name is Jane O. There's more after the O. So she is our first winner. So we will be, Jane, if you're listening, it's very exciting. So we'll get all your information to send that to you. It's a game changer. So I'm excited as I sit here with mine on, which we'll talk about in a minute. So that's very exciting. And we're actually extending our raffle for a week. So good news. So watch for that too, so that you can share the joy with Jane and the rest of us. Kamyra, you want to tell us a little bit about your experience, and then I'll jump in with mine?
Sure. I am probably the newest user, most recent user on the Your Team, team. So I am still at that point where at first I was like very skeptical, but I'll try it. I'll try it.
That's how it starts. Yeah.
Yep. And then I decided that I would try it because my husband is a poor sleeper. And I thought if the sleep part works, then I can buy him one and maybe this will help him. So I've been using it, but apparently not enough because a few days ago, the app pinged me and said, you need to use it more if you want to see results.
Oh, that's funny. I have not had that issue. So that's funny. That's good messaging. Right. Right. How far into it are you? When did you start using it?
So I've been using it for a couple of weeks. I am having internet problems. So I don't know if I went out on you guys. So I don't know if that happened in the on the broadcast, but if I go out, then I'll try to redo something. So I've been using it for a couple of weeks, and I can't tell the difference in most modes if I want it to be making a difference or if it really is. But there is one mode for me that seems to be working.
Okay, what is that mode?
It's the recovery after you exercise. When I put that on, I feel as if my muscles are relaxing, I'm a little calmer, and I get some energy. Like I feel as if it's not I don't have to sit down and pant as long as I normally do after a good session.
Yeah, the true definition of recovery, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. And I've been using mine, oh boy, it's probably almost a year. And quite frankly, I go in phases with it in terms of how much I use it. But I think there's a couple of things that I find very interesting. So I think we all have like our favorite modes, right? Which is probably personality driven and whatever we're dealing with at the time. And it's funny, I jotted down like a few of mine. So I always, energy and wake up is kind of a standard one. Like I've got my coffee here. I go into that mode, make my way through emails. It's actually like part of my routine is what I would say at this point, right? It's just kind of what I do. When I sit down to do a task where I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get this proposal out or these proposals out, or I promise something to somebody, right? Then I'll go into clear and focused mode. And it's funny, I remember when I started using it and Sue was in her skeptical phase. And I was saying to her, she's like, well, do you think it's helping? I'm like, all I can tell you is that I'm sleeping better. I feel better. She's like, well, is that the only thing that's changed is the Apollo? I'm like, well, as far as I can tell, I'm like, but it's really hard to articulate. But there are definitely, the other one is the sleep mode, which I use all the time. And the other piece that I think is super interesting is I will go to sleep. I wear mine on my wrist. Some people wear it around their ankle. But I have also so I have it on sleep mode. You set it for your 30 minutes, 50, whatever you want. And, but I have woken up during the night and you can do like a reset right from the device. So like you can hit both buttons and I'll put you back into that mode. And that does get me right back to sleep.
Ooh, I'm going to try that.
So I feel like that is like for, women of a certain age where we are, my problem isn't falling asleep. My problem is staying asleep, right? The head is going, right? All of the things. So, when I found that, I was like, oh, game changer. So I do really I really like that. And I think there is a sense of, and this is what I was saying to Sue when I first used it, there was a sense of that intention where I'm like, okay, I like right now, before we started, I went into, what do they call it? Social and open. Because I'm more of an introvert. Like I tend to like, I spend a lot of time by myself. So but I set it to social and open, and it's kind of like, okay, I put it out there, so now I have to do it. So there's like, I think there's a bunch of things that go on at the same time with it. But the science is fascinating. And, you probably, many of our viewers have seen Dr. Rabin talk about the science of it, which I think is really interesting. So what about for your husband? What are you thinking about it?
So I'm going to give myself 2 more weeks, and I think I'll go ahead and give him one and see how it helps, because he's up and down at night, and it would help both of us if he could sleep better. For those of you who don't know the science behind it, you should really go to the website and look at it. The device is sending pulses to you, so it's not a biofeedback. They're not taking your information.
Great point.
And it's very similar. The technology is very similar to an Apple Watch, any of these watches. So if you're comfortable wearing a watch, you'd be comfortable wearing the Apollo Neuro. I wear mine on my ankle.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Well, I have an Apple Watch. And so if I had that on my wrist, I feel like Wonder Woman. Like
totally. Not a bad thing. Wait, that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I'm also a jewelry wearer, so I was like, oh, that's prime real estate. So I put it on my ankle.
Okay, that's a good line. That's a good line.
And it works just as well on your ankle.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think, and Kamyra, you're right at this point, so it'll be interesting. I'll be curious to hear what you have to say about this. So over time, and mine took, it was probably a good month or 6 weeks. I noticed that I started you choose the intensity, and I kept pushing down the intensity. And I guess that is, I remember asking one of our people at Apollo Neuro, I'm like, is that common? He's like, totally, because your body is getting used to it. So that sensory input that you desired, or to get that impulse, your body, doesn't need as much of it because your body's starting to recognize it. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, because I kept dialing back. I'm like, are these pulses getting stronger? But it was just my body responding to it.
Yes. And that's a good point that people should know. So your body begins to do what the Neuro is doing, what the Apollo Neuro is doing. So over time, you use it less. So it's not habit forming. It's actually the opposite. And the science behind it is that before we moved into the type of society where, we're in these family silos and we have less interaction with people, especially post-COVID. We used to do these for our more, and what the Apollo is doing is giving us those sensations and then teaching our bodies how to do it for themselves. So it's not something that's habit forming that you won't be able to sleep without it. It's actually teaching you how to sleep better.
Right, which is great, and that's right, and that fits right in with those decreased the intensity, like right, lowering that. No, it is really a fascinating thing. I think the science is as interesting as any of it, and like when you have an issue, whether it's a back pain, or you're dealing with some health issues, and you start throwing all these solutions at them, and then it gets better, and you're like, oh my god, what was it, what changed, what was the piece? And that's why this was this was during the pandemic is when I started using it, and just everything. I think that sense of control over it definitely helps. I feel like because you get to choose it, and so there is that. That was the piece I was trying to articulate to Sue. I remember I'm like, there is something about me choosing it and how I use it. That has, at least for me, is a piece of maybe the solution, that I feel like I get to be part of the solution, and no matter what, it's helping. So I think at the end of the day, that's the best thing. And I do have a few friends whose kids use them. So high schoolers, college age kids, and they each have gotten different things out of it. And I think that's really fascinating too. Like, one of my friends, her kid uses it more like she's sitting down to do her homework. And so she sets it on that clear and focus. Another one uses it more for sleep. So that's interesting.
Do you, since you're the expert here, do you find a difference between the mindful meditation and the calm? Because they're two different modes.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. Those are definitely two that I use less. And I was thinking, yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at all of them right now. I am definitely mainly energy, wake up, clear and focus, sometimes relax and unwind, and then sleep and renew. Like that's where I live 90% of my my time, I would say. And I think that's the other thing is because there are so many different ways to use it. And it's like, whatever you're battling,
Exactly.
Which is kind of fun.
Because if you're anxious or something, there's the mindful meditation that puts you in the right frame, the right state of mind to meditate. There's also the calm, like and I put the calm on. I was somewhere. I was in a crowd somewhere, and I was not happy. People were not COVID compliant, and I'm a stickler for that. And so I put the calm on, and I don't know if it worked or if I just told myself relax, Kamyra, and by doing that I made myself relax. Now I hear that there is a point at which I will definitely know that it is the Neuro work and the Apollo Neuro and not my psyche.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just thinking maybe we'll have Jess put in the notes or in the chat how to sign up for the raffle would be great because we are extending that by a week so people can pick that up. Lots of information. Again, check the website, apolloneuro.com. Also, if you're purchasing your teen, 10% discount code. So that's also good. It is not inexpensive, but there is not a price you can put on your sleep and your well-being, as I like to say. So, it is something you will use daily. So I think that, that's an important piece. Great graduation gift too, for these kids, like, what do you get them or what do you get a spouse? Father's Day is coming up, grad gifts, etc. So that would be great. Jess, if you'll add that into the comments. And I just thank you, Jess. Anything else, Kamyra?
No, but I have a big thank you because now you solved the Father's Day gift problem for me.
You are welcome. That's a good one. That's right. We're only 2 weeks, maybe almost, 2.5 weeks away, maybe from Father's Day. Yep. And grad gifts. So have a great weekend, Kamyra. Thanks for joining today, playing the role of Sue today. Yeah, it was really fun. Okay. Have a great weekend, everybody.